Well, I'm on cable here on my camera because I unplugged the transformer to save a little energy last night, but then used up most of my battery and didn't realize that. I plugged the camera into the transformer and nothing was working, and I thought maybe I broke my camera. But it just ran out of juice. So, following the scripting of the first turns of the battle, in fact, all of this is very heavily scripted for the historical game. What we have to do to open up is, prior to the first turn, the English longbow that are in range of the French cav. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's just 2 units there. All I have to do is fire 1 volley, and at range 6, 1 volley may be what I want to fire. Because my percentage chance is very low of getting any hits whatsoever at this range. If I fire a full 6 volleys, I'm only getting a 6% chance. So all I'm doing here is trying to piss them off. Now what I have to do is look up who this is, and we've got Suffolk on the left, and everything's kind of divided into wings for the 2 battles in terms of all the recording stuff to make it easier. And there, that's Oxford. There is a little bit of weirdness though, because the right and left seem screwed up here, and I don't have an easy way to fix that, because I guess I could swap their order, their location where they are. So the King's Own is over here, and that is listed as right on the counter, but I have it on the left side. On the other hand, it's also on the left side here, so I think the counters are just misappropriated for that. It's not that big a deal. The only reason you need the left and right is to tell where you're going to be looking on the chart. For 2 units, I can do that. All right, so now with one volley being fired in each case, all I have is a 1% chance. I need a 0-1. I'm using the black as 10s. I'll do this one first. This is just to piss them off, kind of like a squad leader roll. The SS killing the prisoners in front of the Russian units to force them to charge forward. Okay, so now the restriction on the French is the frontline cavalry, and only the cavalry must move. It must charge at full movement allowance toward the English line in the impulse's outline. On the next game turn, it must continue to charge. Okay, so if we're going to charge, we flip to our charge movement. We have the Admiral attached to this. And now we look at our terrain. Muddy is going to cost us 1 per hex. Now I believe we have 2 movement points per impulse with charging cav. A contour line going uphill, which we have here, is +1. Downhill, well, that's actually got a problem because you can't charge downhill. 7.26. I said that wasn't going to have a lot of effect, but it actually does, because the English are right on the line there. So what's important with that is not too much here or here where the cav wings are. They're able to charge, but if cav were over here, they'd have trouble moving across. Of course, I've dismounted. That's the scenario. You don't have an option on that. If you were playing the clear terrain scenario, probably all of these men-at-arms should be mounted. That would be a huge advantage. That's not an option in the game, though. So, with 2 movement points, I spend 1, I don't have enough to go uphill. And likewise here, I spend 1. I don't really want to aim for those stakes. I don't have too much choice, but I've just gone the first impulse. Now I'm at range 5. Do the archers want to fire at range 5. The volley, the percentage of effectiveness is not very good there, so I'm going to push it to the second impulse. I'll let him get a little closer. Now it costs 2 movement points to climb up this hill. Oh, this guy actually could have gone 2 last time. And he can go 2 more. Alright. And now we're getting pretty close here. I was actually at range 4 before and should have fired at that range. But we held fire for some reason. So we're going to fire now at range 1, 2, 3, 4 with, who's this? This is the Suffolk stuff. Now at range 4, I might as well fire all 6 volleys. I'm a little worried here. And I get a 30, which means I do only 1 row of hits to this. Jesus, I can't thing. And it generates, and this is actually an odd or even thing, a fugitive and a dead. And now over here, I've got even more fire. 1, 2, 1, 2. I let them get too damn close. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to open fire here with all of these. These guys have to fire too if they're in range. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're not. So here I have York, Huntington, and Oxford. 6. On each of them. Actually, I can't do 6 on the Oxford because they're only at range 2. Like I said, I let them get too close. So let's do them first. They're at 2 hexes, firing 3 volleys. 31, 36 is my fire. I miss. The Huntington and Oxford are at 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Do one of them at 36, a miss, and the second one, 08. That's just 1 hit on whatever unit this is. It's this one here, and that 2 will generate people running and dying, and we'll put them both. I don't know any other game that keeps track of the dead bodies this way at this scale. Alright. And I'll do another pulse of movement. I'll come back. I don't like being tethered like this on the camera. I have a mixed effectiveness. This thing just dissolved, and that allows me to free up a casualty. I have my dead markers in here because they don't give actual counters to record the dead. So we're getting some body count there. But over here, all this fire, including this unit which had to fire, because if you fire any of your archers, you must fire all of them that can. Well, they missed, and I fired 3 rounds from each of these, and then only 1 from here because that was more of just a disadvantage to be up there. I'm really not, I was kind of worried, hey, am I overexpending ammo here? Well, seems like the answer is no, I didn't dissolve it. Now, of course, I held my fire at a range when I would have had some good shots at range 4, which is pretty near optimal, and I didn't, but I expected this to melt those tiny cav units. So that's actually the end of 3 impulses of movement. And now we go to some other interesting stuff, because the unit can still dissolve due to morale. I had move during the game turn, which forces me to take a morale check. I only have one unit that's forced. It's this guy. He took 1 point for arrow strikes. He's got a dead marker within 2. It's lost its first line, so that's 3 points of morale. And none of the others affect us. So we're at 3-point morale. We're a all other unit. And down on the first line, I think that's backwards, actually. Which may be the case with these too. I'm going to have to look at this because it seems like too many things are working backwards. Morale failure for a small unit strikes me as more likely than for a large unit. And to tell you the truth, failure in combat, the denser the unit, I understand there's reasons for that, but it really bothers me that they're more likely to lose a line the more of it there is. It almost seems like there should be some defensive scale. I could understand that under the design of the game, but yeah, because of the peculiarities of Agincourt and the compacting of the forces. But damn, this is not very sensible to me. So I'm going to have to look at the rules some. As far as I can see, that's the case. The number of current lines possessed by each unit is displayed on the unit's line strength record track printed on the game map. For each line loss the target unit incurs, the number of lines of the target unit is reduced by 1. So I think I'm doing it correctly there. I gotta plug in again. I unplugged because this is so fucking annoying to have the wire attached, but it wasn't so bad on my old camera, but this thing is... Well, that one stopped working, so... This one's not in as pleasant a position. Now, for morale checks... Player check morale locates the horizontal line corresponding to the morale point loss and traces it, stopping on the vertical column corresponding to the unit's current line strength and type. Yeah, so it looks to me like this is an all other unit, even though it only has 2 lines and should actually be its own special, or maybe this top, but anyway. And essentially I have... I don't remember what my number was. It was around 3, but I lost first line. Got a dead near me. I took an arrow strike. That's 3. Well, I'm not sure what an arrow strike is. I'm assuming it was a successful arrow strike, but I've actually taken 2 if you count unsuccessful. So let's look that up and see if it tells me anything about that. It probably doesn't. These old rules were easy for me to cope with. I would just play them and not worry about getting everything all right. But I don't know, somehow doing stuff on video means I have to do things better than I like to. I'm going to just say successful. I just do not feel like reading rules. Anybody want to comment on it and give me an exact rule number? I'm glad to correct things if I can find the answer, but I like being sloppy. So what does that mean? Well, that means I have a 7% chance of disintegrating, and I do not. So now we'd hit melee, And the English would fatigue if they were engaged in melee. They were not. So, now we go to the English move. And we have no fugitives. We have no French archery. We have no English movement, essentially. I see no point to doing that. You might want to make an argument of, geez, I ought to start picking up arrows. Well, if I switch to yeoman mode to pick up arrows, these things are going to start marching closer. They're going to get 3 hexes closer, and the units that most need the arrows, these wing nuts over here, actually, well, all of them are really under pressure. I don't want to scrounge for arrows. The English longbows have an extra sheaf, maybe, with them, which is to say each unit, I believe, makes a die roll and adds, I don't remember if it's 15 or 17 or something like that. I think it's 15 to the die roll. That sounds like the dragon from Scandinavia, and gets that many additional ammo when they run out the first time. There's no real way to mark that, oh yeah, it's the first time, except, well, by trying to remember, which isn't going to work too well, I can guarantee you. Across the line for the rest of the stuff, the English aren't going to have any morale here, because there are no English fugitives or anything like that going on. It's not a 5th game turn, so we don't have an army morale check, an army check for morale. So we just push forward to the 11:23 turn. Wow, 3-minute game turns. How many games do you see that in? Yeah, this is going to be over real fast. Alrighty. Okay, well, we start off the second turn with the French dead. I'm sorry, not the dead. The French fugitives having to move. And we make 1 roll for each fugitive. I keep facing on these for the moment that they die so that I can swing them around to see which hex they go in. So this guy either goes this way or he goes this way. And it's a one-time roll, and then he goes down the hex grain for the rest of it until something happens. We'll do odd to the left. Okay, he's got an even. And how far do they go? Shit, I'm not sure. $14.2324. Its entire movement allowance. Great. So I gotta see how many hexes of movement a fugitive has here. They have an impulse allowance of 1 in the mud. That means they're only gonna go 1 hex. He went even, I do believe, so he'll head this way. And I gotta kind of point him that way because that remains his order of movement. Now for the others, this one is gonna head this way, and that one back there will head this way. And you can see where they're gonna start colliding with and having effects on the army. Now the army can kind of try to avoid them, but they are going to be an annoyance. After that, I think we go to French movement. And now we have to look up the specific rules for the scenario again. And, you know, much as I like the historical notes and the designer notes, it's half the booklet. It would have been really cool, although probably a little more expensive, to publish it as 2 separate stapled units. I know they couldn't afford 3 staples for the binding. They only used 2 on it. That probably would have been too much cost for SPI. But still, it is always nice to have things bound as separate books. Alright, so now the French second line. or the French first line, I believe it gets to move now, and it's going to be moving at full speed towards the English line. On the next game turn, the French cavalry must continue, and the French front line must move forward. Now, the French front line is only going to have one movement point. Same with the non-charging cav. The cav continues to charge, and we're going to have to hit those stakes, which is not going to be pleasant. Probably going to dissolve on that morale check. See, the line's beginning to already kind of fall apart. This was after one impulse, because some guys have to climb the hill, and they don't have the movement point to do that, remember? That starts to break up the requirements of line movement there, I think. We'll see, but many of the requirements are still in place, like having to just move forward each turn and such. But I don't know. There's still a line, even if they're just a line of 1 or 2 units. So now I get to allocate fire. And here's a question, do you want to use your archers to shoot up the oncoming close stuff, or do you want to worry more about some of this more distant stuff? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going to shoot at range 6. Well, yes, I am. Because if any of my archers shoot, they all shoot. But I'm not going to shoot many volleys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, here's the problem. If I open any fire on this thing, rather than just try to let it break on the morale check. So let's look at what this morale check's going to look like. We're going to have an 81% chance of falling apart. That's still pretty good. That's because this costs 10. Actually, we're going to possibly have more than that. 5 more for a melee means we'll be rolling at least once more for another 30% chance. Basically, you cycle around. So if you reach the top of this chart, you get to go around, and each set of 10 gets fully accounted for, and then you do another percentage. So I think it's very unlikely that unit's going to make it to me. So I'm going to hold all my fire, which doesn't feel realistic. It feels like those archers would still be firing, but I can't do that without launching from these guys, and I don't want to do that. I notice I forgot to fire my artillery too. Maybe it wasn't set up on the first turn. All right. So now I get to continue moving, and these guys are frozen in place. As we get a little closer, we will see some archery fire. And I can shoot them then. I don't have to shoot them on this particular round because melee doesn't happen in between the impulses. Given the slow movement rate of these non-cav units, I decided to hold my fire until the 3rd round. I could fire during all of the impulses, but now I've got to fire because these guys are getting within good range anyway. Let's look at what I got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've got one guy at range 5. Now 5 is not a terribly good range to fire at. I'm gonna just fire 1 volley there from Suffolk. I don't want to waste a lot of shot. He's low on arrows. And of course he doesn't get that. Range 1 is not tremendously good either, but I do want to fire there, so I'm going to declare all my fire here. I'm at range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, these guys 1, 2. These guys are getting in range. Alright, I got to do these. So, the West County and the Gloucester are both in range. Now Gloucester could fire here 1, 2, 3, 4, but that would be at range 5 because I'm firing over a friendly unit. So I'd rather just shoot straight ahead at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. Well, I'll shoot at range 5, but this guy's gonna range 6, the West County. We're gonna take care of that. Only firing 1 volley there. Means I have a 1% chance, which I don't get. I don't know why I'm doing all the firing here, just because it's kind of irritating. Wow, there's this weird glitter tracking on the thing. Now here I have to start deciding. Gloucester is going to fire one fire round. At range 1, I only need to do one strike here, and chances are he's going to fall apart. So I'll fire one from him, but at range 2, I'll just fire one there as well. 1, 2, 3. At range 4, though, I'm getting at the point where I kind of like firing my whole load, because I really do not want this main attack hitting. I don't think this thing is going to get very far. Cav going against the thing. And, oh crap, my stupid battery is dying again. I usually charge it up, but I just don't have much time here. All right, I'm going to go offline to roll these. I wanted to do them in front of you, but I don't want to deal with the wire connector. Shit, I fired at the men-at-arms for all the cav throughout the entire game so far instead of at the cav. I'm just leaving it as is. I don't know how much it affects things. It looks like higher odds of hitting the cav because the horse is getting hit. I think I've done well enough. I wiped them out there. Now I've got to go to morale checks, though, for all that second line. Although there were some nearby dead units and a little bit of crowding, the chances of a morale failure here are pretty low. Now, if I was small units, they would have to press on. But because I've got most of my lines present, these will continue. These had to actually make checks. That puts me now to a melee phase. Now, importantly, this leader here cannot melee. He's not alone there. And conceivably, the yeoman could step out. They could drop their bows or put away their bows, step out and grab him as a captive along with the fugitives there, which might be worthwhile because these guys are going to take a while to get up there. I'm not going to get much further than this, so it looks like a safe move for them. The English did not have any melee, so they don't have to check. So now we're going on to the English player turn, and these. All the mechanical actions in this are taking quite a bit of effort, actually. So now here on the British turn, we have no fugitives. They have the right to move, though. Like I had suggested, I'm going to leave these stakes here, turn this into yeoman, and move up here. Now I only have one movement point per impulse, but that's enough to grab that. I capture, and I don't really have a place to keep these other than here. There's no markers for captives as opposed to... I guess you could count the dead and the captives on the track, but I think there are plenty of captive markers. And the French don't get to fire, essentially. I could take... I'm just too far away. I could take a shot with this, which I ignored before, and I believe I have a 6% chance. Now, it's 6 turns before the next time I can shoot, but I might as well take that shot, and I don't get it. And that's one impulse. Second impulse, I move these back. Now I'm going to leave them up here like this in yeoman formation because they're not ready to shoot next turn. Because of that. And actually, and then we go to the third. Now, I have to worry about a morale check because they moved. It doesn't have any penalties, though, that I can see going against it, not even dead of their own kind. So their morale hasn't been harmed there. So that looks to me like the end of 2 turns. And, well, I think we can load this one up. I like to keep initial videos kind of shorter. a lot of this is what's going to happen. Next turn we're going to see the French marching forward a little bit further. 3 more hexes really at the optimal, which puts them to about here. They're still going to be taking heavy fire as they approach, and they're having a hard time making it up to the English line at all with the archers the way they work. The French can't afford to attack is what it comes down to. Now, if you played the King Harry's Folly type scenario, what you probably want to do is push the English forward to a reasonable range, say 4 hexes, and open fire on the front line at 4 hexes. Maybe just doing it discriminately in the sense that you're forcing only a few of the French units to advance. The others can, if I understand the scenario correctly, but it becomes a little bit more of a tedious operation to wipe them out. All right, I'm going to load this one up as